welcome back to another episode of Dad and Me. My name is Kaylee Gray, and I'm with my host, Pastor Brad, my dad.
Hello out there. Hope you're having a good start of the year here.
And we are doing a leadership series. And so what are we going to be talking about today, Dad?
Today we're going to be talking about communication and connection. If you don't know how to communicate or connect with other people, relationships become really hard.
Yes, they do. And so this leadership series has been so fun. And I know we always preface that, everyone is a leader, no matter where you are, what position you're in, you're going to be leading at some point in your life. And so that's why we are so passionate about talking about this. This is stuff that we've learned over the years. I mean, definitely more. So I've learned a lot more from him than
still learning.
Yeah. And so I think that's great. And so even with us doing this podcast, I feel like it's almost like a refresher, but I'm also like learning more. Yeah. So I love it. So anyways, okay. So communication and connection. Let's just dive right in.
All righty. Sounds good. A lot of leadership books I've read, you just kind of assimilate them and then all of a sudden they become a part of your life. And one of the quotes that I read that was pretty good, my main thrust in a lot of leadership stuff is the difference between a leader and a manager, because a lot of people can maybe manage, but they don't know how to lead. Steve Jobs, one of his quotes was, "Management is about persuading people to do things they do not want to do, while leadership is about inspiring people to do things they never thought they could do." And, just how important it is to try to get people to buy in, and so I think one of the questions, we could ask ourselves, do we want to control people or do we want to inspire people?
Oh, that's really good. Because I think a lot of times when you do get pushed up in management and you do get that leadership position, you think that you are just going to be controlling everyone. Yeah. You don't think that you inspire. When you think leadership, you're not always thinking inspire. At least I'm not.
No. Sometimes, you look at people and you kind of figure they're an extension of you, but they are in some ways, but also they have their own giftings and their way they do things. So trying to make them better in what they can do I think is a very wise thing. And what I've found out in life is that proper communication can help unlock the potential in people. It's how you frame things.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think a lot of that too, nowadays we have personality tests and things like that. Yeah. So you can I know you're not like probably the biggest fan of personality tests. I love them. And it has allowed me and helped me even through myself is like understanding how I communicate or how I do things and knowing that not everybody is the same way I am. Yeah. Because you and I communicate very similarly, whereas in mom and the boys communicate differently and definitely have had to like learn over the years how to communicate to each other.
Yeah, just because we say something doesn't mean they're going to connect with what we're saying. And learning that, you find out as you get in deeper in relationships. I mean, if you keep everybody at arm's length, you're never really going to grow yourself and you're not going to really grow other people.
Yeah.
So it's important that you learn how to do that. And, I've just found, it's important that we learn how to talk people up instead of, talking them down.
Yeah.
Putting them down and, cursing their identity, those sort of things, and you get more out of people when they feel that you really care about them.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times too, it's like an insecurity thing when you are in leadership and maybe there is somebody that is more skilled at something than you are.
It can be a threat.
It can be a threat. And so then you do almost try to belittle them and talk down to them. And that you're, because you're the one that's in charge. But it's amazing how if you can push that aside and just when you encourage people and you do, you see their potential and you want the best for them.
Yeah.
I think that's some of my favorite things of doing in like, when I oversaw like volunteers and things like that and just like seeing skills that they had that I didn't and just like, speaking into them or, even like friendships or different relationships in my life, like seeing something that they have and just encouraging them and kind of almost being a hype girl for
Right.
them.
Yeah.
And because I mean, I have those people in my life that do that for me. And it's amazing how far the communication goes and how much closer you can become when you aren't threatened by the other
Yeah.
person. And you just, you, there's just something when you encourage people and you just see their potential and want the best for them. I wish everybody did that, but I think it all stems down to an insecurity thing.
Yeah. That's a shepherd's heart when you want to see people grow and want to help them grow. And that's very important. We're going to look at a scripture. Did you want to read that?
Yeah, definitely. So the scripture that we're doing today is Colossians 4:6, and it says, "Let your speech always be with grace, as though seasoned with salt, so that you will know how to respond to each person."
Yeah, a lot of good stuff in there to kind of unpack there, and talks about a couple things, that our speech, our talk needs to be seasoned with grace as though through salt. And to me, grace is something when somebody is graceful, you kind of see that and the idea of what that is. But what I want to first point out is that that's not flattery, but encouragement. There's a difference between the two.
Yeah.
Some people, I think, will try to flatter you, but it's really to get what they want. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
that's very true.
that is kind of a dangerous thing. And you can kind of tell when somebody is kind of using that just to try to gain your ear or, get favor and stuff like that,
Yeah.
But grace, on the other hand, to me, grace is empowerment, when you empower other people. And, that's just so important. And as you look at that, it talks also how you should respond to each person.
Yeah.
As we know, we just talked about a second ago, is that everybody's just a little bit different, and some people are more different than others, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But anyway, different people sometimes need different communication styles.
Yeah.
Some people need a soft touch, and some people need to be challenged.
Yeah, that's true.
And
some people can be more direct in their communication where other people have to like slowly, you almost have to like, it's so funny because I have those friends where I'm like, we can just be like, hey, can you do this? Blah, 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 blah. And I have other friends like, hey, how are you doing? How's everything going? I was wondering if you'd be able to help like with this, and stuff and it's just so funny, but you recognize and you see those different people and you understand like, you can't just like go right in and be like, I need you to do this because then otherwise that person is offended. And,
right. You can't cut them off. And, ask them what their end game is.
I love it. And so grace, grace is hard, especially, I think it's hard to give yourself grace, but like always like giving other people grace, but like to always be with grace. And I think, when you are communicating with people and, maybe they say something to you that might offend you, or maybe like it came across wrong because they're communicating differently to you. I think it says, let your speech always be with grace. I think that too, like in response of like what they're saying, like what you're saying to them, but also in your response of what you're saying to them, it needs to be in grace.
Because, when you're in a position of leadership, it's like your words might have a little more clout. Not all the time, people may not respect your leadership, but for the most part, if you're in a position like I as a pastor know that when I say certain things, it might carry a little bit more clout than, other times, so I need to make sure that I'm kind of wise and not, use my position and say some things. So you want to kind of be careful. You're going to make mistakes. We know that. We're all going to maybe say something wrong or do something wrong. But, I've just found out that, sometimes you get frustrated working with people. Most of us would probably say that sometimes it's just easier to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
But, it's not going to multiply getting things done. If you end up doing everything yourself, then it's only one dimensional. But if you can get other people to buy in and they can help, then a lot more things will happen. And then in doing that, you're going to have to really try to keep your frustration in check, because people ain't going to do it the way you want. And then what happens then is that we may say something with the wrong tone.
Yeah.
And what I found, we may have something great to say, but it's how we say it that's the problem.
Yeah.
And they don't receive it. If we say it in a way that they may feel like it's condescending or maybe controlling or all these things. So it may be a very valid point, but like I say, if we're doing it with the wrong tone,
Oh yeah.
because the goal of communication and connection is to connect and to communicate with each other. But if we put up barriers, and then that's going to be an issue.
No, I think it's true because I always it's funny because the word sure. I hate the word sure because I never like if people are texting that, you don't know the tone that they're saying it.
Yeah.
Because are they saying it sure or sure? Like there's two different ways of them saying sure. And like it literally, like when people, like if I'm like texting them or I am in them, I'm like, well, which one are they? Like, are they upset with me? Like, like they're sure just going to do it, or like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So it is amazing how tone of voice can make the biggest difference in your communication. And before we go too far, in that scripture, it was like talking about seasoned with salt. And I think sometimes like when you're like thinking about that, like you're like salt, like what does that mean? Salt is flavorful.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And so I think like our words need to be flavorful. They need to speak in a way that reflects Christ. And I think in that scripture, it says, let your speech always be with grace as though seasoned with salt, that you would know how to respond to each person. Like we need to speak in a way that reflects Christ, be gracious, considerate, thoughtful. And so I think just it's funny, like, like, well, you need to be salty, like not in the mean saltiness.
But to me, salt is truth a little bit too. You know? So you need to speak the truth. But
how you speak the truth is different, and it all comes down to the tone of voice and like how you communicate it.
Can you have too much salt?
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, I feel like it could be almost bitter. You know what I mean? Because I definitely have done that to the chicken. And so
a little bit too much.
Just a little bit too much. So yes.
So the importance that I want to stress too is the two words that we use is communication and connection. And sometimes a lot of people may work on their communication, but they never take time to make the connection. And how important is it to have connection before we communicate?
That's true. I never really thought about that. Because there are people that I have a connection with, and when I communicate with them, there's just like a deeper level of intimacy, I would say, compared to people I have no connection with that I'm just communicating with. That was really good, Dad.
So connection, I saw something, and this guy was a salesman, and he researched the person because the person was somewhat famous, I guess. And the guy wasn't going to buy anything. He told his wife, but then when they showed up, the guy had researched and found some common ground with the guy. And instead of trying to sell him something first, he started talking about that connection, that common ground, or something what they had in common with each other. And when he did that, it sold itself. So working on that connection, trying to find common ground, that is because greater connection equals greater influence. And remember, leadership is influence, so that is important that we do that.
Well, even like I remember connecting with me as a kid, because like the boys always did sports and everything, so you could connect with them better. But me, I was always like doing dance, or I was more into like all of the girly stuff. And so you took an effort to connect with me in my stuff of dance so that we could communicate. Do you remember that?
Kind of. That's our story, and we're sticking to it anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's so funny.
You probably remember it a little nicer than I do. I don't
know. Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember I would always show you my dances. Like I'd always practice, and then you'd be like, "Oh, tighter arms," or "You need to do this." You learned words that I was using in dance and stuff, and a way to connect with me, and like took time to sit there and watch me.
Kind of a cheat code.
Pretty much.
Yeah. There you go. So, so the goal with this is to try to get people to listen to us because they want to and not because they have to. If you're a manager, they may have to listen, but if you're a leader, they want to listen.
That's true.
And so that's how we want to try to develop relationships, with other people, because just like with anything, especially a parent, you probably figured this out. Message sent doesn't always mean message received, especially if you're talking to kids, right?
Yeah.
And that can happen with adults too.
Yeah, that's true.
You may give out great information, but if they're not receiving that information, it's just talking.
Yeah.
And so we want to try to kind of straighten that out. So, yeah.
No, that's really good.
Another thing that I've always kind of learned too is the idea of the sin of assumption, because we assume, because we come at most things in life from our perspective. And one of the things we make a difference that makes a difference in our life is the fact that, in a bad way, is that we think everybody thinks like we do.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
why wouldn't they? Because we think great.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it works for us and it's been successful. So why don't they see it that way? But the sin of assumption means that, we just think that everybody's going to understand what we're trying to say. And that's not the case. And that's why you need to have a deeper, a little bit more of a connection so you can have better communication, so you can talk things out and maybe reframe how you say it and things, just so people, understand what you're trying to say.
No, that's really good.
So proper communication is informational and inspirational.
It's informational and inspirational.
Yeah.
Yes. No, it is. And I think that's great, because there is a point in your communication where it does need to be informational, but you also want to be inspirational to where you can connect them, where we were like talking about, you see the potential in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And make them want to be better, make them want to buy in, and be able to get them established also in your life.
Yeah, so, that's really good.
There's different ways, different techniques that you and I can do to be able to get better at this.
No,
I think a little work.
It does. And I think that's great, because I think, with talking with this, so many people can be like, okay, yeah, that's great. Like you want, you should, be communicating a certain way, but like, how do we do this? Because maybe the way that they were taught over life, they had never communicated that way before. So it's sometimes hard to like switch and be like, okay, well, like, how can I communicate this way? How can I connect with people better?
Now, my wife not think I work like this, but me, when somebody, I don't mind a lecture thing, because I can remember what people say.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. But other people like to do it another way. And that's why, one way that we can get better is to ask open-ended questions to encourage deeper discussion and understanding, to discuss it. Now, sometimes, that can be frustrating, depends on your personality type,
Oh yeah.
Don't really. And if you're just a manager and you're thinking, when people ask you questions, you might think it's a challenge.
That's very true.
And it's just got to try to get past that. But, a deeper discussion is important. So learning how to frame questions and ask questions will help in your communication and connection.
Yes, it will, which we kind of did an episode on that, about like how to ask the right questions last year. But that is one thing that you do all the time. And I won't lie, it is sometimes very frustrating to have a conversation with you.
I could have been a lawyer.
You probably could have been, because sometimes I'm just like, well, I didn't think of that question. Like, no, and stuff. Or like, you just keep digging and like, it's just like, keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And I'm just like, I don't know, like, but it makes me think and stuff like that. And so it goes back to that, where I just have to like pause and like not be insecure, and like, you're not attacking me, but like knowing you're just like trying to help
Trying to talk things out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, sometimes when you're trying to connect and communicate, by hashing things out and talking things out, all of a sudden the other person may just get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it's theirs. They own it. So they're in.
Yeah.
In it to win it. So yeah.
No, that's really good.
Another thing is to maintain eye contact, so you show attentiveness. I mean, when you're talking to somebody, if you're looking at your watch or your phone, and doing all these other things, that kind of will be a barrier.
Oh yeah, or even I've like talked to people and they like won't even look me in the eye when they're talking. They
Yeah.
always have to like look other places. And I
I
think
mean, you don't want to stare down, but
no,
but you
but I
need to
mean,
stay
but I feel
engaged.
like
Yeah.
you have to connect with somebody. You have to be able to look them in the eye to have a
Yeah.
conversation and like
Yeah.
talk to them. And so I think maybe too it could be an insecurity thing on their side if they're not like talking to you or looking at you. I mean, like even in babysitting, like when like I'm like trying to have a conversation and the kids are like looking, I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
look me in the eye, like I'm trying to talk to
Make
you,
sure we,
and stuff like
yeah.
that. So I'm wanting to make sure you understand what I'm saying.
Do you see me? Yeah.
Yes. And so it's just so funny that even at a young age, kids are always like, zoom, zoom, looking all over the place. And
Yeah.
so I think, yeah, and that's a great skill to have if you can maintain eye contact because it shows you are interested and your attention is not going to other places. It's going to what that person is saying or what you're saying to that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. Fully focused and fully engaged. Yeah.
Yes.
Another thing that'll help you for a better connection and communication is don't interrupt so that people can finish their thoughts.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So, you get, in a conversation and somebody says something and then it triggers something in your mind and you just got to blurt it out. Well, maybe it's taking the conversation a different direction. And that can be really frustrating
Yeah.
for the other person because they're trying to make a point from their perspective and you interrupted that.
Yeah.
And that makes it look like you don't really maybe respect what they have to say.
Yeah.
So that can be a problem.
It can be a problem. And sometimes you get so excited and you're like, oh, you just want to like chime in and like talk and communicate. But there is that sign of like trying not to interrupt people's thoughts because then like you try to go back to it and you're like, wait, what was I talking about? You know what I mean? And so you don't get anywhere. And so I think that's one that so many people could work on.
Yep.
Because I think everyone struggles with that.
Yep. And then lastly, and there's more, but we just wrote a few of these down.
Yeah.
Is the key is to be genuinely interested in people, to show people that you really care.
Yeah.
Because they can see through that. And if you don't really care, you need to spend some time with the Lord or something and ask him to change your heart and try to get to that place where you really care about people because that's what leadership is not just being in charge and telling people to do things that you don't want to do. Leadership is building people.
Yeah.
That's the key. If we can see ourselves as builders and if we have a goal that, maybe not every conversation, but if we set a goal that every conversation that I get in with somebody, I'm going to make them better. I'm going to make them feel better about themselves. I'm going to make them better informed. All these things, that's really going to go a long ways.
Yeah.
And
It's true because you can tell when somebody is genuinely interested in you and just kind of almost like faking it and like trying to get something out of it. Because I've had so many times where like my skill set or things like that, I know people are buttering me up or talking me up to try to get me to like be a part of their team or like do something for them when I have other people that I could tell like genuinely taking an interest in me, also want to encourage me and build me up and want me to work with them, but it's been like a totally different thing. And so just navigating that and like understanding that, because like people can realize that and recognize it. And so when you are genuinely interested in someone, they can tell. And like you said, don't like fake it, but like truly find something. And like you said, praying. I remember like somebody that I was like leading with, like literally like was not the biggest fan of that person, but had to lead with them and, had to communicate with them. And so starting to pray for them and like praying for that person, like softened my heart to them, to me, to where like I wanted to get to know them and like just have a better connection with that person.
And place value on them.
Yes.
Instead of devalue them, we value them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's,
Amen.
It's really important. So I think those are some great tips of like asking open-ended questions, maintaining eye contact, trying not to interrupt people so that they can finish their thoughts, and also just be genuinely interested in people, because If you just, I mean, there's so many more, but if you do those things, I know that your communication and connection with people is going to be
Gonna get better.
so
Yeah.
much better. And it's not something that's going to happen just like overnight. This is something that is like gradual, but if you start like making these tiny little steps,
And you have to practice it.
yes.
It's one thing just to listen to something.
Yes.
See, a lot of times we listen to something and we learn something, but we never do something, you know, and we know it.
Yeah.
So we think we get credit for it. You know what I mean? I've learned this in marriage. You know, I thought it,
Yeah.
but I didn't say it. So I only got partial credit, very partial credit.
Very partial.
You know,
Very little.
and, but so you got to practice these things.
Yes.
Yes.
No, I think, nope, this is so good. Well, good. Well, anything else you have to add? I think we
No,
kind
I
of
think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I guess for today.
be sure we are dropping new episodes every first Wednesday. And so we're so thankful that you are along for the ride of our leadership series with Dad and me. And we can't wait to see you next month.
Amen. Have a blessed day.
All right. Bye-bye.